Okay. I'm ready. Let's do it.
Here we go. All right.
Ratchet. Ratchet is that video game that was out back in the early 2000s. I think it was called Ratchet and Clank.
Yeah.
Ratchet and Clank.
Yeah.
And so I guess when a kid uses the word ratchet, they're like saying they look like that video game character. I don't know.
Okay.
Ratchet. Dope. Dope is not a good thing for you kids. Dope is something that you smoke. And I advise you to stay away from it. That's all I'm going to say about dope. Swag. Swag is something that I've got a lot of. Swag is like, you're smooth and cool and you're just, so chill. And you're just a lot of fun to be around. You got so much swag, like Justin Bieber. He's got swag. I've got swag. We're swaggy. Fam, it's different than family. When you say family, it's like your mom, your dad, your brother, your sister. But when you say fam, it's like a whole different meaning. Fam is like your brothers, the people that you do dumb stuff with. That's your fam. That's your real fam. Oh man, lit. I get confused with the word lit, because for us, lit is just when you light something like a candle. So when I say that is lit, I'm talking about it is on fire. Stop, drop, and roll if something is lit. And so I get confused with that. But our kids, they say lit when something's really exciting and fun. They say this is lit, but I don't see any fire. I want to take you back to the year 2000. Go back with me to the year 2000. This was the beginning of an amazing decade, which at the end of the decade, Billboard would name the greatest rock band of all time of that decade to be Nickelback. It's a great decade. I really enjoyed the decade of the 2000s. Yes, that's the same year, 2000, that the PlayStation 2 came out. The same year that the Titans came up just 1 inch short of winning the Super Bowl. The same year that the movie Gladiator won the Academy Award for Best Picture. This is the same year that I went to Disney World, okay? The year 2000. I'm at Disney World. This is a long-awaited trip that we've been waiting for my whole life. I'm 10 years old. And here we are, finally taking our trip to Disney World. We get there, and that moment where you're looking for the perfect souvenir. I waited all week for that perfect souvenir. We looked all around the theme park, and we couldn't find that perfect souvenir. But lucky for me, we were only halfway through the week of staying for the whole week. It was about Wednesday or so. And we were going to downtown Disney, where one of the largest Disney stores in the world was located. So we walked in, and I was on a mission to find that perfect souvenir. And I saw it across the room. There it was, a beautiful stuffed Pluto. It was perfect. I knew that this was the thing that was going to remind me of the wonderful trip to Disney World in the year 2000. So I ran over there and I grasped Pluto, knowing that this was the perfect thing for me. So I went to the counter, pulled out my money, paid for it, turned around, and no one was there. Not my family, not my sister, not my friends, nobody. There I was, completely lost and alone. Just completely wondering, where did everybody go? When have you been physically lost? Maybe it was last year, back in the summer, when Pokemon Go came out. You remember that. I'm sure you've got it. I've got it on my cell phone. I'm hanging on to it. But maybe that was when you got lost. Maybe you wandered around looking for that Snorlax just creeping in your backyard, and you were lost. That was the case for 4 teenagers in Wiltshire, England, who found themselves lost 100 feet in a cave looking for a Pokemon. Yeah, looking for a Pokemon down in a network of caves, and they were lost. Being physically lost brings feelings of hopelessness and fear. It's a terrible, terrible feeling. And when those feelings come upon you, you wish for nothing more than just to be found. You just want a familiar voice to call your name. You want a familiar face to walk in the door, to come into the cave. A familiar face, something that can get you found. But no feeling is worse than being spiritually lost. You have to be willing to do what it takes to be found when you're spiritually lost. I want you to go to Luke chapter 15 with me. Luke chapter 15. That's what we're going to read during this segment. Luke chapter 15. Jesus is telling a story about a son who was physically lost. And not just physically lost, he was spiritually lost. The story starts out with this young man goes to his dad and he asks for his inheritance. Even though that's something you usually get after your father passes from this life, he wanted to get his inheritance now so that he could go and enjoy it and spend it the way he wanted to. And so that's what he did. He received his share of inheritance early, and the young man went off and spent all of the money. And the Bible tells us that he spent it on reckless living. He had a good time, but the story, unfortunately, just gets worse and worse. Look at verse 14 of chapter 15. Verse 14. And when he had spent everything, he's out of money, a severe famine arose in that country, and he began to be in need. And even from there, after he's ran out of money, a famine, if you don't know what a famine is, that's when there's no food for anyone, no crops, nothing. A famine arises, and he has no money. But if you can imagine with me, this story just gets worse from there. Look at verses 15 and 16. So he went and hired himself out to one of the citizens of that country, who sent him into his field to feed pigs. So here he is. He was with his dad back at home. He had everything he ever dreamed of, but because he wanted to enjoy life, he went off and ended up in a pig pen. In a pig pen. Look at verse 16. And he was longing to be fed with the pods that the pigs ate, and no one gave him anything. Here's this young son. He has no money, no food, and he's looking at this pig food as if it's a steak. He wants to eat the pig food. He found himself so low that he wanted to eat this food. We're going to call this his pig pen moment. A pig pen moment is when this young son realized that he was lost and he couldn't make it on his own anymore. In this moment, the only thing that mattered to him was getting back to a place that was familiar. The only thing that mattered to him in a pig pen moment was to be found. I want to give you a hard truth right now. At some point in your life, you are going to experience a pig pen moment. A pig pen moment. A moment where you are completely lost and all you long for is to be found. Pig pens look different for a lot of people. Pig pens look different for a lot of people. For some, your pig pen moment is going to be when you find out that you don't get into the college that you have desired your entire life to go to. That'll be your pig pen moment. For some, it's going to be when you find yourself addicted to drugs, addicted to alcohol. For some, it's going to be when you or a family member is struck with a sickness that they tell you is not going away. For some, that'll be your pig pen moment. But I want you to remember this. Just because you're lost doesn't mean you can't be found. I'm going to say that again. Being lost does not mean that you cannot be found. Sometimes it takes being lost to realize how much you need Jesus. Sometimes being spiritually lost is what it takes. This pig pen moment is what it takes for you to realize how much you truly need Jesus in your life. It happened all throughout Scripture. Look at Paul. Paul, without Jesus, his name was Saul. He was a murderer. He arrested people who belonged to Jesus, but we all know what he turned into with Jesus. Without Jesus, look at Matthew. Matthew was a tax collector. Matthew charged people more money than they needed to be charged and then put it in his own pocket. He took advantage of them. Look at Peter. Peter was with Jesus during some of his toughest times, but when Jesus needed him the most, he was lost. He denied Jesus 3 different times. But despite their brokenness, despite their helplessness, each of them were able to turn their lives around and do amazing things for God. Despite your brokenness, you can do great things for God. Despite your brokenness, you can come back to God. You can find Jesus again. You can create a relationship with Him, and you can do amazing things for God. I want you to remember this. You are never too far gone to have a relationship with Jesus. You are never too far gone for Jesus to welcome you back. Look back at our story of the lost son in Luke 15. The son was lost. He was filled with hunger and fear. We've all experienced that, fear of being lost. He was experiencing that. But there was one place that he knew that he could get the fulfillment that he needed. Look at verse 20. And he arose and came to his father. Can you imagine what he's expecting when he sees his father? After he took his inheritance, he went off and spent it on his reckless living. I know personally, coming back to my father, I would have expected some very angry people, an angry family, upset family, a family that is hurt. Imagine how nervous he was walking up the field towards his dad. And he arose, he goes to his father, but his father doesn't wait on him to come up to the doorstep. While he's a long way off, his father saw him, and he felt compassion. And he ran and embraced him, and he kissed him. Just think about how great you feel when you find something that's been lost for a long time, something you've been looking for forever. I'll never forget sprinting down the road towards our post office in Winchester and seeing Pikachu for the first time. Seeing Pikachu just sitting there all cute and cuddly right there in the bushes. I've been searching for him for so long, and there he was. And I caught him. I'll never forget the feeling that I felt when I caught Pikachu. Or how about when your phone is lost? Man, it is an awful feeling when your phone is missing. You don't know where it is. Or maybe you're on a youth trip and one of your best friends has taken it, but you don't know it. It happens all the time. That feeling you have when you search everywhere and you can't find it and you're lost, the feeling you have when you finally find what you've been looking for. That's the feeling I had just recently. Just recently, I'd had this necklace. This necklace was a necklace that my granddad, he made for me. And but my mom, it was her idea. It was my mom's idea. When I was a kid, I was probably in kindergarten or first grade, I was terrified of storms. And when a storm came, for some reason, I would feel so alone, so broken, by myself. And my mom had this idea. I think it was one of these quarters here. I think it was this quarter. She had this idea to put a quarter on a necklace. And that whenever a storm came or whenever something bad would happen, that I could hold this quarter close to my heart and remember that she's there with me. So through the years, my granddad would put different coins on this necklace. And this necklace was lost. I couldn't find it. And even though now it doesn't mean the same thing, it's not just something that I hold close to my heart, it's something that reminds me of my childhood, brings me back. But just recently I found this necklace. I was at my parents' house and I opened this little drawer and there this box was. And I knew exactly what it was. That feeling that you have when you find something that you've been searching for a long time. Recognize that no matter how lost you are, Jesus is waiting on you to turn around. Jesus is waiting on you to accept Him again. You're never too lost to be found. You are lost without Jesus. May today be the day that you decide to be found. May today be the day that you stop putting Jesus off and saying, you know, my life's all right now. I'll get to Jesus later. May today be the day that you decide that you're going to be found.